It is that time of the month. I'm so very, very excited. One of my favorite times of the month. It is Women's History Month, and I have a group of phenomenal Christian women, and it's time for our monthly segment with Covenant Conversations. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. We are always so honored to be here, so thank you so much. And thank you for having the rest of my lovely friends back as well. We are so excited.
Oh, gosh. I am so excited to have you. The response was extremely well.
I wanted to kind of switch up the format. I know for people who weren't here last month or who weren't tuned in last month, they may be used to Covenant Conversations just being a few of us, but I have brought in a few women who are amazing women of God. They are my friends, and they're going to be a more regular part of our segment, so I'll let them say their names. I'm Denise.
Aniyah.
And we'll have Yvette as well. She'll be popping in. And I am Alicia, for those who don't know. But our topic is how to recover from slip-ups while dating. And, I think it's something that we don't talk about a lot in the church. But it is important. And, when I say slip-ups, now I guess I should back up and define that. By slip-ups, I mean when you are dating someone but you find that you have crossed a boundary either physically or crossed a boundary emotionally. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that, you've gone all the way and slept with the person. It could be, any kind of boundary that you feel like you've crossed in dating, because we know that when we're trying to date God's way, it can be kind of a challenge. So we wanted to talk about how to recover from slip-ups. What do you do when you want to date in a way that pleases God, but you find that you have made a mistake? And I think a lot of times in church we are really good at showing the highlight reel, but not as good at showing the process. So we're just here to have a transparent and honest conversation to let people in on that process, and hopefully it'll inspire others.
All right, let's do it.
And we have something new going on. You can actually talk to us live, which is really great. So it's facebook.com/COVECONVO, Cov Convo.
Okay. And Twitter is the same?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right.
So we are here. So feel free to share your questions and your tips, too. If there's something that works for you in your relationships about how to recover that we didn't mention, we would love to have you share those things with us as well.
Absolutely.
So we'll go ahead and get started, and Denise was actually going to share some of her story with us. So I'll let you go ahead, Denise.
So for me, I guess my story starts in the midst of an ungodly relationship, and that it's very hard to turn around and go from ungodly to godly. So just trying to change those behaviors and being with a man who was not on board. He was saved and he did accept Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, but was not really ready to live in a godly relationship as far as abstinence. So that was very difficult for me in that I pretty much had to decide if I'm going to love him more or if I'm going to love God more. And it took me a while actually to get on the page where I did love God, and I was going, or love God more than the man, rather. And I was going back and forth between trying to please God and then also trying to please that boyfriend. And it did put a strain on our relationship. And so for a while, I just gave up trying to be godly about it and went with what felt good at the time. And what I learned in that experience is that you really do have to be equally yoked with a person that you're dating, and you've got to be on the same page. And when you do decide that you're going to be godly in your relationships, you have to be very, very firm with that and be in a relationship that supports that lifestyle and that decision. So for me, I had to be willing to let go of the sinful relationship. So my recovery from going back and forth between pleasing God and pleasing the boyfriend really came with being out of that sinful relationship completely.
Yeah. And I love that story too, Denise, because I think that sometimes when we're dating, it's hard to, I mean, we know we're not supposed to be unequally yoked, but I think your story gives such a realistic picture about why we're not supposed to be. You know, it's not just a rule, because sometimes it feels limiting, and it's like, man, there's not that many guys who are trying to live for the Lord, like, you know, work with me. But,
right.
But I do think your story is such a great reminder about, you know, there's a reason why God says what he says. And it's interesting because, like, even in the Old Testament, I recently read in my Bible reading where he was telling the people of Israel not to do that. And he was saying, because they will turn your hearts away from me. So I guess it just goes back to the whole, you know, you can't serve two masters thing. And it's so tough. It's so tough.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Great story.
And I know Aniyah had a story.
Yes. So, again, I've been seeing my gentleman for about 5 months now, and towards the beginning, we both have a relationship and a love for Christ, but towards the beginning, there were heated moments. Now, I want to go on record as having said that we have not gone the distance, but yes, praise him. But I find him insanely attractive. He finds me attractive, and there are late nights when you get back from dinner and things like that, and you're saying goodbye, and things can get heated up. And so my recovery would have had to have been us deciding. We went to breakfast one morning, we sat down, and we basically said, I'm in a relationship with Christ, you're in a relationship with Christ, and neither one of us wants to be the reason that the other one falls. So we need to figure out what to do and lay some ground rules. And I actually contacted Denise via text the day after, the heated moments happened, and she was like, you need to find like an accountability buddy, someone that you can be completely open and honest with, someone is not going to judge you, but is going to, help you through the whole situation and what you guys do. She said, I remember you saying, if I have to tattle on myself at the end of the night, then I'm less likely to go and do whatever it is. And that helped. That really helped. I did choose someone else outside of the group to confide in, but it does help. If I have to tell them at the end of the night that, I did whatever I did, then I'm likely not to do it. And so it's been great so far. So for the past, 3 or 4 months, there's been no slip-ups. We don't see each other after a certain time. We are not alone together. You have to put some things into play. And like they said, it really does help to have someone who is just as much in love with Christ as you are, because you really don't want to disappoint the Father. It would be terrible, and in the end, it really isn't worth it. And we both want to see that, not end goal. I don't think marriage is really the end goal, but we want to see that wedding night be as amazing as it can be, provided we stick to the plan. So that's where we come from there.
I love that. And and I'm so glad you said that too, because I know that is not just you. I mean, I found myself in those situations. I have a lot of friends that love the Lord that have found themselves in those situations, and I think it's something that really does happen a lot, and it's just difficult, I think, to find places to talk about it and be real. And I want to commend you, because it's not easy. Oh, and I think you should clear up for the record, because sometimes people think that when you start making those boundaries, like, okay, we're not going to see each other after a certain time, or, you start saying those things, people think, oh, you must be one of those, like, super spiritual, like, crazy. So can you just set the record straight?
No, not at all. It's more just an understanding. It's not even, being super spiritual. It's about... Also, what was presented was it was a way to still get to know one another without getting to know one another. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's still learn one another. Let's still learn each other's quirks, each other's weirdness, each other's whatever it is. Like, we're still silly as all get out. We just we gotta lay some rules. We gotta lay some boundaries. Does that Yes, just
no. I love that. People think that. Sometimes I think people feel that boundaries are just for really strict, weird people, but it's not. I mean, you're just coming out with a plan of success. No. And I can speak for, I know you have been knowing you for so many years. You're a very down-to-earth, fun-loving, cool girl. So I just think you're setting a great example for all of us.
Mm-hmm. But it's also being clear on, people will do to you what you let them do to you. So if you don't make it clear and you don't speak up for your boundaries, then they are going to think that you're just being standoffish, or you might distance yourself from that man. And it's like, you don't want to do that. You just want to be clear, and you want to make sure that you're both on the same page. Because if he wasn't, I don't think our relationship could have continued at that point. If he was like, well, girl, you didn't, never mind.
So you're saying have the conversation and don't just start changing up out of thin air.
Not to say, in the beginning we did have a conversation. We had a conversation on day one that was like, we are not going to do this. But, it's different when you're in person and,
things happen.
You just watched Creed and now you're just like, and now you're just like,
Yes. And everyone, Yvette is here with us now.
Hi, Yvette. I had a question with having the boundaries of not seeing each other after a certain amount of time. What about phone conversations? Do you feel comfortable with late night?
Phone conversations are
late
different.
Night?
So I know. I'm sorry.
Late night phone conversations?
No. Because for me, sometimes your mind, just being honest and being candid in this conversation, your mind is somewhere else. Late night. I need to take my butt to sleep. Like, that's all there is to it. And I noticed that when I'm on the phone late night in the past with other boyfriends or potential suitors or whatever you want to call them, it's been, really inappropriate talk. So I need to get off the phone. I'm not going to be on the phone at like 11, 12, 2 o'clock in the morning. No, we don't need to do that. We can speak during sanctified hours.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's totally up to you and what you're okay with. If you are disciplined enough to not talk about those type of things, then you're good to go. But for me personally and for him, no, we're not able to do that.
Okay.
So good. I have another question. I think you kind of already answered it, but did you get any pushback from him, or was he so equally on that same page with you that you felt he was as down for this as you? How did that go?
Well, thanks, Alicia. But it was actually his idea to have the conversation because he would stop. There were two different instances. One time I stopped things, the other time he did. But he was just like, it's not conducive to what we're trying to accomplish here. And so the next morning when we went to breakfast, he was like, look, I like you a lot, and I want to keep this going, but we need to talk about how we're going to move forward. And I was like, you know what, great, let's do that. And now we both just keep each other accountable.
Wow. I love that.
It's pretty awesome.
I know I can speak from experience. I think kind of like Denise was saying, too, where in my case, sometimes it's even been men who are in the church, but they're not trying to have a whole lot of boundaries, and once you bring that up, they start getting an attitude with you. I don't even want to get into some of this. I've just heard guys say, see, this is what's wrong with church women. Y'all always trying to da-da-da-da-da, and I think maybe that's a red flag.
Yes, I think so.
Did you want to speak on that, Yvette?
Well, I was listening in the car, and my story is pretty much it's similar to Denise, the one in particular, but he was a Christian. I think, did you say yours was? He was. Yeah, but it seems then it's really similar. He was also a Christian, and yes, there was definitely an unevenly yoked kind of situation going on that I didn't really want to see straight away because he believed in God and I believed in God, and I'm like, oh, it's enough. And I didn't really do enough investigating to see if he would want to be on the same page as far as abstinence was concerned. I just kind of thought it was a given. And so he was kind of fresh on accepting Christ, so he was kind of on fire for the moment. And just like, yes, And then, I kind of expected him to, as
I don't know, not necessarily as a man in a relationship, but I expected his faith and his resolve to be a little stronger. So maybe, like, if I'm feeling a little weak, that he can, like, oh, no, you know what I mean? And I think he expected the same of me, and obviously that did not work out. So in the end, it just didn't work. We ended up failing because we consistently entered into, like, public displays of affection really, really early on, and that led to failure. So we didn't actually have accountability. I know I didn't have an accountability partner. I think that was awesome of Denise to suggest to you. I didn't have that. I wish that I had. If I had, I think that things would have probably been a little different, and we would have probably been open and had that conversation. And yeah, so
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I also had to watch was what I wore. I don't know if that matters, but it's also like when we went out on dates, I had to watch the things that I wore. Now, you should be watching what you're wearing anyway, being a godly woman, but just, yeah, that's one of the things that I also had to think about. You have to think about other things besides just cutting things off before they get there. Like, let's not put them in a position to want to X, Y, Z.
Right.
Let's wear the muumuu.
The moo-moo.
You know, I think the fact that you're willing to think about it ahead of time shows that your intention really is to not mess up, because I think if people go into it like, okay, yeah, we're going to act like we don't want to do this, but if something happens, then, oh, well, you know, but to make it a point to set yourself up for success before the date, I think it shows a lot that your heart really is for the purity, and I think that's a good example.
And what I really like about what Aniyah said is it started with a sincere conversation with both people on the same page, followed by action steps leading into the boundaries, because I had a similar situation with somebody who was more saved and both trying to be on the same page, but it was somebody who liked to push the boundaries. And so that did lead to some close calls and stuff we really had no business doing, but what we only had was the conversation, and we did not set the boundaries in place, so it was still late-night phone calls, late-night visits, and just being too snuggled up for no good reason. So that's definitely a good tip. You got to have the action steps in there, and the accountability.
Go ahead.
I think the close call thing for me was huge. Just overestimating your resolve, overestimating what your boiling point is, how far you can take it. Because I think people hear, oh, well, you just need to know how far you can go, but you don't know how far they can go. So it's kind of like you're trying to play both sides, and I think too many brushes with close calls and near misses. Eventually, just like being dragged away by scent, eventually it's going to give birth to that. So, got to keep that in mind.
That's a great point. I think you hit the nail on the head, Yvette. I think a lot of people overestimate what they can handle, and I think it's because we don't want. I just think laugh out. Yes, I have learned I cannot handle a whole lot. I just cannot, And then people want to say, oh, well, it's, that's a matter of self-control, and that means you're not strong. No, it does not. It's strong to take yourself out of the situation. It's weak to keep yourself in a situation where you could fail. So
exactly. At some point, you start getting that tug from the spirit, like, okay, fire alarms are going off. You can't run from the fire extinguisher. You know what I'm saying? You gotta, sometimes when you're in it, you lose yourself, and you don't think about anything else. And at that point, it's like it's too late.
I wanted to say something about accountability too, because you said that you called Denise or you texted her after. And I think you made a wise choice, knowing both of you, I think you made a wise choice in calling Denise because No. That's not at all what I was trying to say. I just don't want people listening to think that you can pick any friend to call.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I'm going. Because I know for me if I pick you for my accountability partner, it means I really think that you are a woman of substance and character who will hold me to what I say, because I know there are certain friends, I intentionally do not call them because they're going to be like, hey, girl, so was it fun? You know, they're going to try to, like, they're going to look at it as fun, whereas, you know, I think the type of friends you want to talk to for accountability are ones who are going to be concerned if they see you slipping, because they want you to experience all that God has for you. They know, you know, they know how you're supposed to be living, and not just supposed to be, but they don't want to see you walk out of God's will because they love you and they care about you, and, you know, they know what your goals are. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because, you know, some of y'all, your friends might get you in more trouble. And I think certain friends will rationalize, and they'll say, oh, well, you've been going to church, like, you're good, you know, you're doing better than a lot of people, so just don't even worry about it, you know, and that kind of stuff. That's not accountability, you know. There might be a place for that, I don't know. Maybe comfort, if you're beating yourself up, call that person, I don't know, but that's not accountability. That's a yes man, you know. So.
Wow.
And not just a friend that doesn't want to see you fail, but a friend that will talk to you and have that conversation with you. Because it's love. Really, in love. It really does no good to just be sad about it in the background. You have to, you know, be willing to pull the coattails.
SuiteLady, did you have anything to add?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm enjoying the listening to you guys, the conversation. Okay. Go ahead.
You know, another thing that I think is interesting, and these ladies will know because we all go to the same church, and my dad is a pastor of the church, for those who don't know that. And so I think it's interesting. I love that my dad is very, like, realistic and practical about this, because he's like, look, if you've been fornicating, come up to me after service, get your marriage license. I will marry you guys. You just can end the struggle. And literally, people have taken him up on that. They have come back the next Sunday with a like, you know, they've gone down to the courthouse, whatever they need to do. My dad married them. Like,
really?
And I only bring that point up because I do think it's important to remember, like, the end game isn't to be in a constant state of struggle. Right. And I think when I'm in a struggle in a relationship, I'm like, okay, let's move towards this goal. We either are going to get married at some point or we're going to break up. But that middle time, not that I would encourage anyone to rush it, but I would encourage us to not prolong it either, because especially by the time you're an adult, I mean, at a certain point, you just want to be intimate with the person that you love, and God made you to be intimate with the person that you love. And sometimes I think it's a struggle because we date so long. And I think that one of the reasons that we date a long time is because we can have a fear of commitment in our culture. And so, you know, a guy or a woman could be like, oh, I'll date him for 2, 3, 4 years, but, you know, I don't really know yet if I want to marry him. So they... You know, it's a fear of commitment. It's not because they're invested in this process of learning the person. You know, I think we fear commitment, and when we do that, we put a strain on our ability to be disciplined in the area of, you know, physical purity and emotional purity. So I would just encourage us to not unnecessarily prolong those seasons. You know, do your due diligence to learn the other person, but get married in the struggle.
Yeah, I think there's just so many. It seems like there's so many options, specifically for men. You know what I mean? Like, you go online dating, or you go, you know, look at television, and it's just a barrage of different women available. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, consistent. And I know I've had friends tell me that they find it kind of difficult because I won't say who they are, but they find it kind of difficult because they feel like, you know, hey, I might be missing out on the one. Like, this person seems like the one, but what if there's a real good one that I'm missing out on if I enter into a covenant relationship with this woman by marrying her? And so, you know, they kind of try to keep their options open. They don't want to make a mistake. And I know women do that too, in a way too. So, you know, kind of try to walk a little slower in the relationship. But like you said, that struggle, it does not get easier if you're trying to abstain. It gets harder and harder, which should prompt us to make a decision.
Yes.
So actually, to kind of touch on that, but then also share what helps. In this time of prayer and consecration that we've been on with our church, being off of Facebook and being off of social media has also, kept me away from certain things and desires. Because there are things that you see on those social media pages that kind of stir something up. And,
Yes.
Then you want to call your boo and be like, what you doing? No. So, in the past, I don't know how many days it's been, to be honest, but I know we're nowhere near the end of it. I've had a lot of, there's that song that goes all the way back to, grade school, be careful little eyes what you see, be careful little ears what you hear. Not being influenced by those things has actually helped. So you might want to I'm not telling you have to limit your time to be in a relationship, but limit your time on Facebook and Instagram, and get back to the Word or get back to getting to know that person, and you can alleviate a lot of issues.
That's good advice. And I know that not only can slip-ups come in the form of physical boundaries being crossed, but sometimes emotional boundaries can be crossed. So I'll share a story from my life. This is Alicia speaking. So this happened when I was fresh out of college. So it was some years ago. Thank God I have learned. I'm not as dumb as I'm about to sound right now. So, okay. I met a guy years ago, and, I was young, wide-eyed, and he was a little bit older than me. He had a house and a nice car and a good job, and he went to church and went to the gym. He just seemed like that whole package. And he took an interest in me, and we, bonded kind of quickly. So I made first the fatal flaw of my mind starts going. Because sometimes when we meet a guy who seems like, good looking and like they have all this going on, we're like, oh, I'm about to be Mrs. So-and-so. Like, God is lining it up. You just kind of like take some leaps. You take some licenses in your mind and you think, oh my gosh, God is answering my prayers. God has brought this person into my life. So, my mind kind of started going. So we started our friendship, and we just bonded really quickly, and we talked all the time. And mind you, which is interesting about this is we were never physical at all, like not even cuddling. This was all pure emotion. So he would call me all the time. He would call me in between his errands. So I felt so important. He would give me all this time on the phone, and he'd call me before bed, and we'd talk about our, what we want in life and our purpose and what we want, what kind of families, and we talked about all this stuff, and we just got really close really fast. I mean, we hadn't known each other very long. We were sharing all these details about our lives. So we were getting emotionally close. And then I started doing that, what I call now auditioning, which I don't think I was consciously doing it, but that's when you start doing wifely things, but you're not a wife. You start wifing a boyfriend. And he wasn't even a boyfriend. We were just talking. We were just talking. So I will never forget this. He was telling me, he's like, man, Alicia, like I'm so busy, and I've got some of my frat brothers coming in town for a Super Bowl party, and I'm really busy, and I don't have time to clean my house and cook. Oh, no. Okay. So you already know what's about to happen. I was like, oh, I got you. Yes, I did. I did. I was like, oh, I was like, just focus on your work. I'll help you clean your house. I'll help you I'll cook for your friends. So I show up thinking I was just so cute because he was like, he gave me some money. He was like, here, take my keys. He gave me a grocery list. I knew I was just Mrs. So-and-so. And then, anyway, you all know how the story ends. Eventually, he hit me with the I'm not ready for a relationship card. Okay. And I was like so devastated. And so the one thing that I am proud that I did at that time was, when he did that, first of all, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? Like, this guy is always calling my phone. He's always, obviously, because he was getting so much out of it. But anyway, so he hit me with the I'm not ready for a relationship thing. And so after I wrapped my head around that, I did say, well, I need to fall back And that taught me about the power of the fallback, because falling back is a very powerful tool to recover from, emotional doing too much. And so he didn't like that, though. He didn't throw a fit. Well, he threw a little bit of a fit. He's like, man, I'm heartbroken. Like, you're just going to, you're one of my closest friends. I'm going to miss you. Like, what do you mean you're not going to call me as much? What do you, and he didn't get it. He literally didn't get it. I don't know. I won't say, I'll probably sound naive if I say I don't think he was trying to take advantage. I think some guys just don't get it, because I think he thought, I'm not having sex with this girl, and I so could be, and I'm not, so what's the problem,
No, yeah.
But I don't think guys always get that our emotions can be just as sensitive.
Yes.
And we can go there just off of our mind, our emotions.
Yeah, we've had that talk, based on someone that we know collectively, and how they may not realize, I'm not going to say too much, but how they may not realize how they're talking to someone or how they're coming off as someone. So, guys, I don't think, to your point, I believe that he may not have even known, because I didn't experience that until, this past year. And I didn't know that guys couldn't know, but apparently they really can't.
It's true.
They don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And I sat here and laughed when you said it, but I was in the same situation. And getting that closeness, thinking that we're doing good because we're praying together and we are doing devotions together, and then I'll visit his church and he'd visit my church, and it has you, I think, thinking that the relationship is more godly than it is necessarily, and we would overlook some other key issues that we were having as a couple together. So that's very important. And yes, I did the clean his house and all that stuff too. So yeah, it's funny, but it's not.
Right, I know. I can only laugh now. At the time, I was definitely crying myself to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it was something that you said to me that was like, you have to guard your heart. You have to do that, and that's, something that has moved me forward. So,
you are welcome.
No, that's exactly true. I mean, I was just going to say the same thing. Guard your heart, and I know I think we've all, most women have been in that situation. I think that
yes.
In the end, it's about safeguarding yourself, making sure that you're seeing things without rose-colored glasses. You know what I mean? Like, it may look sweet and everything, but when you really peel it back, you know there's some inconsistencies, and it's so embarrassing because you don't, it's so hard to talk about because it's like, I can't believe I found myself in that situation, acting like somebody's wife, and they hadn't even, given me a ring, and they haven't even, expressed enough. Like, there was no reciprocation. There was not enough for me to even really be doing all that, and so it's really embarrassing to talk about, but I think it's necessary to talk about it. It's hard to find that line, between, not doing wifely things, but also you want to, display God's love. Yeah. I don't want to say advertise my love, but, do you make his plate? Do you, there are so many different places where I'm just like, hold on now, am I doing a wifely thing, or, because there's sometimes I've caught even my current boyfriend saying, preview of coming and try. I'm like, hold up. I haven't put a ring on anything, so let me just put this back and you can go get it. But where is the line? Because there's a lot of media out there that tell women to do the extreme opposite.
That's a good question. Because I will say I'm not, at least for me personally, I'm not so extreme that I won't, it's not like I would make a plate in every scenario, but I can think of maybe one or two times, where I've made a plate for a boyfriend. I mean, that's just being honest. I am gonna show a bit of my nurturing side because that's a huge part of who I am. I am a nurturer, so that is gonna come out. I think for me, it's been pulling back on the things that I thought were gonna really catch them and get them. So when I was 23 and I was doing all that for that one guy, I was thinking, this is gonna he's really gonna see now that I'm a wife. Whereas I think now it's just if I do something like that, I'm not putting that much on it. It's just a kind gesture in that moment. I'm not thinking about what this is gonna say to you and the message is gonna send. And I think at the end of the day, we have to be, led by the Holy Spirit. I think it's difficult to say, you know, what the line is for everyone, but I think when we keep the Holy Spirit as a part of our lives while we're dating, that makes it easier, and just being in tune to what makes you personally go there. Like, I know for me, fantasizing about what my life could be like with him, I had to stop doing that. Like, in my 20s, you know,
yes.
you know, you're in an early stage, and then you're just trying to picture what it would be like to be married to that person. I don't do that because, first of all, it's not real. You're making up something in your mind. You don't know that it's going to be like that. And for me, it just made me go there. So I don't really do that. So I think it's knowing what makes you go there. And another thing for me is, like, availability. Well, even before that, I would say I match the commitment level. So whatever I'm doing, if it creates an expectation of him, I want to make sure that it's something that he is committed to. So, for instance, if I'm cooking for someone and I'm thinking at this point we should be talking every day, but you only call me once a week, then I need to pull back my cooking every day because it's making me want more out of this than what you're giving. So I only try to invest what matches what he has committed to, both in what he said and what he is actually doing. And if, you know, he complains or wants more, but you call me every week, like, well, every week ain't going to get you, you know, all this prime time attention on my schedule. Yes.
That will give you dab.
Yes. Exactly.
Good hug. Every now and again.
That means that you have to pay really close attention to the progress of the relationship to make sure.
Yeah. Right.
You were reminding me.
Run with it in your mind. Run with your hopes and dreams.
Oh. Now, at a point, do you speak up on that and say, you know,
these are my hopes and my dreams?
You can listen to my hopes and dreams, and can you meet me here? No, but do you actually say, you know, if it's going along at a pace that's kind of stagnant and it's not really moving anywhere, do you say, you know, okay, look, at some point I need a little bit more from you, or if you're not feeling it, then I need you to fall all the way back.
You know what? No, I don't. I don't do that personally. Okay. I've learned, and only because of reading those boundaries books and things, they always say state what you are going to do, not what the other person needs to do. So I don't ask, hey, are you going to be calling me? I just change my availability level. So, and I think recently, not to like pop my collar, but I don't even have those issues. No. Because I think I have grown to a point, thank you, Jesus, I've grown to a point where I don't like even deal with guys who have that like mediocre level of interest. Like the guys that I date, they have stated their interest level, or they've stated that they're only looking for friendship. But the guys that are doing the gray area, they don't even really make it to that point. But I think for me, that only came from a lot of stupidness, like stupidity, and making that. Ground. Yes, I made that mistake like several times before I got better. So I think I've just learned to listen for commitment and intentions. And if a guy hasn't done that, I put them in a friend category so early that I don't even get to the point where I'm wanting more from them.
That's good. That's awesome.
Great. And to add to that, I was in a relationship where I was not getting the commitment that I wanted, and so I did kind of demand it. And what you get is somebody who feels forced to commit when they don't want to. And that creates a lot of resentment in the relationship, and that is not healthy. Let me tell you.
And mothering. Feel like you always feel like, well, if I don't do this, are they going to really do what they said that they're going to do, or be there the way that I'm kind of somewhat, I don't want to say forcing you to be there, but you know what I mean, ultimatum type of situation. That's just, it's a you loving you,
exactly. Showing you, like, it's too much. Right. Be coaching you on how to do it.
Right.
And then Alicia, you had said, you know, when you were doing all this stuff for this guy, I was starting to think about motives, because lately I've been really, really thinking about, like, God, help me with my motives. Like, why am I doing this thing or that thing? And so it made me think about, like, when I was doing all that wifey stuff, you know, what was my motive behind that? Was I doing that really just to display God's love to him, or was I doing it to catch him and get him to want me the way that I wanted him? And, you know, I don't really think very good. Out of those kind of motives, those aren't the kind of motives that I want to have in a loving, true relationship that's going to lead to marriage.
That's true. I think that's a good point. And I think guys can pick up on that. I think they can pick up on when they're, I guess, being manipulated is what it is,
if you want to be
in a very nice way, a very comfortable way, being manipulated. But, yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Joaquima was not able to be with us this time. She was watching her babies. But I love that Joaquima is typically a part of covenant conversations now. She is married, and she has a lot of great wisdom. So she did text us. I want to kind of share some things that she said, to chime into the conversation. She said, I should say, she's married to an amazing man of God now. He's one of our friends. He goes to the church, too. Mm-hmm. But she said she's also dated guys who, said they were Christian but really weren't living it. And she said that one of the big differences in, dating a godly man and dating a man who's kind of lukewarm was that certain things were not difficult to discuss. I think that's a really good point. So, like abstinence, if you're talking to a man of God, that's not going to be difficult. He's going to be on the same page. Whereas I think with, someone that might be lukewarm, then that's going to be pulling teeth, trying to get on that same page. So, great point, Joaquima. Thank you.
Yes.
And she also talked about just some of the things that we were mentioning about avoiding intimacy too soon. Physically not putting yourself in situations that are going to set you up to compromise. Aniyah kind of touched on that. She also mentioned that when she was dating or courting the man that she's married to, she also watched spiritual intimacy and made sure that, they weren't praying together, especially early on in the relationship. They weren't doing a lot of praying together because she said it could skew your view of one another or create a false connection, or you could maybe even try manipulating them in the prayers.
Yeah. I knew it was a good idea that we were praying together.
Yeah. Having been there, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think that looks like, Denise? You said you'd see.
Ooh. Well, definitely, I would say maybe skewing your perception of one another in that you see their intentions when they're praying, and you do see their heart, but it does not always come out in action. And so for me, it was a lot of heart connection there, and in seeing the intentions behind everything, but the actions just did not always match up. And because we prayed about everything all the time, it kind of masked and covered up some of the actions. And
here you go feeling on my leg.
Yeah, and those were some of the actions. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely I think blinded me to some of the actual issues that were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on one second.
Sure.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake Heights, Illinois.
Okay, we're back.
So, I mean, those are the main things that we had to add. I don't know if you're listening and you feel like there are tips that you have that we didn't mention, even if it's after the show, please comment and send them to us, because we don't want this to just be a conversation. We want to take and draw from this conversation strategies that can work for us. Mm-hmm. And there could be insights, that you listeners have as well. And so we're here to provide a place where we can be real, parent, and inspire one another and help one another to grow. I know that just from listening friends share today, I've definitely pulled some things that I'm going to employ in my life. And so, we're just hoping that everyone listening does the same. So before I give our challenge, SuiteLady, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just real quickly, there's so many memories that I had in my younger dating days, and wifing up boyfriends was the biggest mistake that I ever did. And now that I am older, it's just not happening. It is just not happening. But I remember feeling like I needed to sell myself, in the sense that I had a clean house, that I knew how to cook, and, that I had all of these great qualities, and, giving those things for the wrong reasons. And I've learned now that if I do something within dating, that I stop to examine, am I going to give this out of the goodness of my heart and not get what I want in return? That I'm just doing it because I just really want to do it. And that really changes so very much in the way that I handle dating, so to speak. But, just coming from someone that's a little older than most of you, we all have been in that place where we've given out of being naive or given because this is the guy that we wanted. I think every woman has actually been there. Yeah. And so glad when you finally get to that point where you know who you are and you know what you want and you know what you're willing to give of yourself. And if he's not okay with it, oh well. Mm-hmm. You get to that point where you love yourself more. And that has been my journey. When I look back on myself in my 20s or 30s, I could write a book on some of the craziness. But today I love myself enough to let's get to the point. Are you here for real? If you're not here for real, I got 1,000 things that I could be doing with my time by myself. But if you want to be here, the door is open. But I'll share this real quickly. I know we're almost up. My test back in the day to find out if the guy was really, really serious, once I got over the whole wife and the boyfriend, I would cook a romantic dinner. And I would cook a romantic dinner, set out the blanket, on the floor, and kind of just eat on the floor, as if it was a picnic outside. The guys would never come back because they felt, that was something, extremely intimate, or that it was some kind of ploy to kind of hook them and they weren't ready to do it. And it doesn't always the philosophy behind that doesn't make sense. But that was always the test. But now my test is bringing them into my radio world. And if
your test is bringing them
into my radio world.
Ooh.
It's bringing them in my radio world. Whenever, I've interviewed an artist or actor or whomever, and I got some backstage passes or access, and I get the photo op and blah, blah, blah. Most of the guys can't handle that. That's a problem. Especially being around the male artists, the male entertainers. They're usually not very comfortable with it. So that's usually my test. If I think things are kind of going good, I'm like, oh, okay, come go with me to this event. And they usually find an excuse to leave after that.
Yeah. Interesting to see how our approaches change over time and, kind of adapt to, because you're in a position where you can do that, and you've seen how different men react in your radio world, so now you kind of, from your experience, you know what to look for. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what we're all saying is, from our experiences, we now know what to look for. And it's just such a cool journey to be able to grow and learn from our mistakes and just become wiser women and men.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right.
I'll close with our challenge. And just wanted to say, I think Yvette wants to say something.
Okay. First. Only thing I wanted to say is that since we're talking about how to recover, just one last thing is that when I fell into sexual sin, it was really important for me to pray for breaking soul ties. So that was huge for me because once you do that, once you fall into sexual sin, it just plays over and over. You feel guilty, you feel horrible, and you wonder, is this pain ever going to go away? Am I ever going to get past this? And one thing that really, really, really helped me was praying for breaking the soul ties, and that praying with people that I trusted and that really loved God and were strong with me. And so I suggest that if anybody's going through that, to definitely do that. I think that would really helpful to allow God to come in and help with that.
Really good reminder. Thank you, Yvette. Definitely have to pray for that. So our challenge is just really simply to take something that you heard, maybe it's 1 point, maybe it's 3 points, and just make a commitment to adopt those strategies for your life, just so that there's a connection between hearing this conversation and letting it affect our lives. I know I'm going to write down my points that I think I'm going to utilize, and I would just invite everyone to do the same. So, and we wish you the best and pray that everyone listening is blessed and that they go forward wiser than they were yesterday.
Amen. Amen. This was great, a great conversation. Thank you so very much, ladies. I appreciate you.
You are welcome. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Take care.